wanted me to hit okay first.
That's no worries there. So for now, it's just you and me.
It's
So
just the two of us.
we can continue our discussion.
I love it.
In fact, I have some stuff prepared, so let me start with that. So here, I just got the latest election update as of 2:38. You can see these numbers here. Scott can you see those numbers on your screen?
I can.
7%. Jerry's 23, you're 21, Sarah's 14, then you got Kathy at 9 and Tina at 3.5. When I checked yesterday, it looked like there were about a third of the votes left to be counted.
Okay.
That they had received. And so we went from 2,500 to 38. I imagine that they'll continue to get mail in from the mail-in ballots, maybe through Friday.
Okay.
The bulk of them will come in. But I think based on what I saw, this would be most of the ballots that came in through the drop boxes and the votes that came in yesterday at the voting centers. So my guess is there's not much left, maybe just a few percent left outstanding. So I don't see this changing much. You did pick up about 1% from yesterday.
Yeah.
And Kathy and Sarah both picked up in terms of percentages.
You bet.
What that tells me is, if I'm just doing an analysis, that you, Sarah, and Kathy were continuing to work till the end, and over the fling weekend, you would have picked up votes.
People who hadn't done it yet, or
mailed it in on Monday. They received it or didn't vote till Tuesday. So, but if you look at it last, okay, I don't have so if I look at turnout a week ago on Thursday, 1,100 people had voted. And then if you look at today, you have 2,700 people voted. So most of the votes came in the last week.
Is that pretty common, especially in an off year?
The votes coming in at the end, I think that's not unusual. Our percentage is 22.7. The county as a whole was 23. So we were among the lower voting cities. Now, we'll pick up more votes, but so will everybody else. So I think nothing much will change. What I did observe, the cities that had a higher voting percentage, they had a mayoral race that was contested.
Okay.
And so I think that leads to higher turnout. Well, I know it leads to higher turnout because if you look at municipal elections, the ones that have a mayor and 2 council members have 20-30% higher voting turnout than the ones that are just council.
Okay.
Which makes sense from a perception point of view, but the council is the one with the votes. So the mayor has influence, but when it comes down to it, the council can do what they want.
Yeah.
So the council race, the 3 council races, just as important as the mayor and 2 council. So
I think,
But it's just the title, mayor.
yeah, the uninformed think the title mayor. Yeah, the uninformed think the mayor is I don't know.
Yeah, well, you get credit for things you didn't do, whether they're good or bad. So,
Sounds good.
but that's where we're at right now. I expect in the general, we could be up at a 40% or higher turnout. That wouldn't surprise me.
That'd be great.
In our case, the mayor still won't be contested. So
maybe not, huh?
maybe not, but
Some of that'll depend on us, right? On how excited we can get people. So
yes. And you know my views on that. There's excited and then there's agitated.
Yep.
So let's see. I'll minimize that. I think we've covered that. I talked about the race yesterday with somebody, and I had no idea how things would turn out, because I know you and Kathy have been out working really hard, Sarah too, and Scott, he's done some mailers and signs, and Jerry is recovering from COVID, so he hasn't been out and about.
Yep.
So to me, I wouldn't have been surprised by any one of the five not making it. Kathy worked really hard, and she attended all our meetings. So
that one actually, I think I told you, it breaks my heart because she's my neighbor up here too, and I know she just worked it.
She worked really hard, but she met a lot of people. If she wants to, she will have an opportunity to be on, serve the city on a board or committee or commission.
Absolutely. I think she would love.
So she did herself good. And Tina, I thought, even on the debate, I thought everybody put their best foot forward. I thought people by and large did well. And I thought everybody put their best foot forward and did well. So
I agree.
And my hat's off. Now that you've run, a little bit about what it means to run. You still have that last half to do.
The brutal half, right?
Well, it's just wearing.
Yeah.
It's good. There's a lot of good in it, but it is wearing. It's a hard thing to do. So let's see. Wesley is in the waiting room. So let me.
Good stuff, Warren.
Wesley, sorry, you've probably been in the waiting room for a while. I apologize for not inviting you in earlier. Feel free to, if your mic's on, go ahead and say hello just so that we know you're there. But I apologize for not catching you earlier. So anyway, on to something other than the election. Let's look at some recent speed studies we've done. We, as a city, I really had to work to convince the council to do this, but we bought two little boxes. They're about this big. They're gray, and they just mount on poles or sign, street sign poles or telephone poles, and they're very unobtrusive. They have a battery, they last 2 weeks, and they can measure speed coming and going. And they're pretty accurate.
I heard you talking about that.
And instead of having the tubes on the road, which I think about half the time, at some point because we do a 2 week, we leave them out there for 2 weeks, the tubes got torn up, and so then they quit working. Like they'd get a little hole in them. You have to replace them. They're not very expensive, but it adds up. but we just wasted 2 weeks because we didn't know until the 2 weeks were over that the data was bad. The guys have to pound them into the road. They have to put a nail in the road, and they have to be out in the road. These, the workers were at first skeptics about it, but now they like it. They can get them up in 5 minutes and be done. And it doesn't matter about weather, whether it's snow, wet, rain, they're safe. They just take them down after 2 weeks, and we download the data here and charge them and put them out again. And it doesn't take a lot of time. And so we collect a bunch of data. I can show, let me just show you what the raw data looks like. So on the raw data side, we get the columns A, B, C, D, E. That's the information we get. So it's the date and time, the speed, the type of vehicle, medium, large, small, whether it's incoming or outgoing. And then I take the rest of it and all the stuff to the right's gray, and then I summarize it and I do a bunch of stuff. But at the end of the day, we get to something that, charts say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I agree. But like in this case, you can look at trip counts. That's average trips per day. So that's one car, one direction. Monday through Sunday on Highland Boulevard, and on the map here shows where the little radar is and which way it was pointing. We had about 6,000 trips. If you just look at Monday through Friday, it's a little bit more. It's like 6,300. And on weekends, it's more like 5,100. So, or 5,200. So traffic is down on weekends. I'll bet Sundays, if we just did it by Sunday, it would be a lot lower than that. What the other thing I do, so this just gives you an idea of what trips, and you can see northbound versus southbound. They're generally pretty even, although sometimes you'll see one direction is more than another for whatever reason. The bottom right or the bottom left chart, I look at quadrants of the day. So midnight to 6 a.m., 6 to noon, noon to 6, and 6 to midnight. And then I have 3 colors. If you were traveling within 5 miles of the speed limit, it's green. If you're traveling 5 to 10, it's yellow. If you're traveling 10 or more over the speed limit, it's red. So you can see how that mix changes depending on the time of day. If we go to top right, we can see, let me change something here. So allow, I'm going to disable waiting room. No, I can't disable it. So I'll just have to.
You know what? If you can make me a co-host, I've got it popped up on a second screen. I can let people in if you want.
I'm not sure how to do that.
Oh, I think so. On yours, I might be able.
Let's see. Move this around. You're not seeing new share participant, stop video, remote control, apps more. There's another screen I have to get to, and I'm not there. So
that's all right.
So I'll try and watch. Let's see if we have anybody on YouTube Live. So YouTube Live, nope, it's just me. All right, so the top right, I show the average speed northbound, southbound, and as an aggregate, and then the 85th percentile. The 85th percentile is used by traffic engineers as a gauge for what a speed limit should be on a road. And a reason that you want the, they don't want to see a disparity between the speed people actually travel and the speed limit, because what you end up with is some people travel the speed limit, and you can see that in the small green section. Then a lot of other people don't, and so you have this big speed disparity, which can cause accidents. You know, if you're passing somebody or you're not passing somebody, or if you have 2 lanes in each direction, you can run into people if you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
So it's safe. It's safer for everyone to be going about 45 than for some people to be going 30 if you set a speed limit down there, and then other people to be going 50. Right. So you want to set the speed limit at a point where you're going to get a narrower band of cars traveling at speeds that are different than their neighbors. So you have a narrow band of what speed people are traveling instead of a big band.
So these numbers, top right, that dotted line is 35 miles per hour. Is that right?
That's the speed limit, correct.
And so your blue there, where it says 43.1, that's average of all the drivers. That's average speed.
Northbound, right? And then average southbound, and then what the aggregate is, which is pretty easy. One's 0.3, one's 0.1, and then you say, okay, then that middle, the total is
exactly
0.2. But the 85th percentile is 48. So it could make sense to revisit that and put it at 45, right? But it used to be 45, and then the city council, because there were a lot of complaints, dropped it to 35.
Well, and a lot of fears again on the bottom of that one, right? Didn't we have a
right? So at the bottom there, we had 2 really serious accidents.
Yeah.
So we dropped the speed, but we might have made it more dangerous.
Okay.
Than it was before. Now, here's a good thing. The corner on the left, the top on the bottom, the corner that's undeveloped on the left there, that's where D.R. Horton is going to be putting in their homes. And that intersection will then go straight across where it says 11800.
Mm-hmm.
And I am positive that at that point, some kind of a
traffic signal
or some kind of a traffic control will be required at that point.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, we had a study done a few years ago, and it didn't meet what are called warrants. They call it, is a signal warranted at that intersection? And there are different traffic metrics that are looked at in accidents. And at the time, a signal wasn't warranted. And so, and I learned this, I'm not an expert, but I've read some and talked to our city engineers and traffic engineers. And if you put a stoplight or a stop sign where it's not warranted, you can actually make the intersection less safe because people aren't expecting it. Or if it doesn't seem like a light is warranted, you'll get people running through it, and then you'll have serious accidents because people that are obeying the signal are going to get T-boned, right? And then those are really serious accidents. One thing I'm actually talking with the mayor of Lehigh about and our city engineer is at that intersection, could we put a roundabout? And studies have shown that in roundabouts, you'll have a typical roundabout compared to a traffic signal has like 13% more fender bender type accidents, but dramatically fewer serious accidents.
Okay.
So less people are going to get injured seriously in a roundabout than in a signal, and you actually move more cars through that intersection in a fixed period of time than a signal. So yeah, you're going to have side swipes but they're not going to be T-bone type
Yeah.
accidents that are very, very serious. So,
And it does still slow it down and makes you, at least for that moment. Yeah, that makes sense.
so the other thing I've asked about, and our city engineer said he's not sure. He thinks it might not be safe, but if you put another roundabout up north where it goes into Sky Estates, you can't see it on this map here.
Yeah.
If you put another roundabout there, what would happen is you'd slow traffic between those two roundabouts, and then people wouldn't be going so fast at the second roundabout.
Would throw the residents, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and so that benefits our residents, because then, you know, they're not going to be complaining about speeders. And I didn't know if it could make the thing safer. The concern our city engineer has is that the northbound intersection, if you put a roundabout there, people coming down the hill and it's coming off a curve, and it might be it's too soon. You see it too late to prepare for it. And so it might make it less safe than more safe.
Yeah.
So, but at least that bottom one, there will be a traffic light or a roundabout. And I'm just full disclosure, I am pushing for a roundabout right now. And, you know, I've talked to the mayor of Lehigh. He said roundabouts like single lane roundabouts can serve even up to 20,000 trips a day. He said that's really pushing it. But it can, they have a single lane roundabout that
Right
goes
over by Sky Ridge, right?
and that's 15,000 a day. And I've driven through that a number of times and I've never had an issue with it. So
No, the gal that cuts my hair lives right over by that. She's complained a few times when it gets really busy in the morning.
mhm.
She's like, people don't know how to use these things.
Yeah, well,
But it still works.
it works. And the people that are going north and south have an opportunity to get on it.
Yep.
So he said that one's serving 15, and it's, you know, they don't view it as an issue in Lehigh. And right now the traffic on this road is about 6,000 trips a day. So it would have to grow substantially to get anywhere near a failure point, or you would need to expand it to a 2-lane roundabout.
Well, and St. George has put them everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
The Spanish Fork is using them a lot.
Okay.
So it's certainly something to look at going forward when we plan intersections. You know, some of the main roads in Highland, Alpine Highway, North County Boulevard, and Timp Highway, those are state roads, and UDOT calls the shots there. So, you know, we can ask for things, but they have their processes and standards, and they do it. So let's look at another intersection or another road. This is Dry Creek, or 6,000 West. And we put the radar at the bottom of the hill. You can see where that little radar thing is. And found out, you know, this speed profile looks a little better than Highland Boulevard.
Dry Creek, that's the one, that's our little dip, right? Is that
right? That's
my direction.
North of Timp Highway. The Longhorn Field is on the left side there.
Perfect.
And then you're going down at the bottom of the dip is where we put this. So you can see the average speeds aren't bad. The 85th percentile is 46. So maybe the speed limit should be higher there. Maybe not. The trips, surprisingly enough, are over 6,000. So there are more people on this road than Highland Boulevard, which I think would surprise some people. Now we put a second counter just south of that. So up above the hill, kind of at the Longhorn Field. And and you're looking at trips per day, now you see that the speed is better.
Oh yeah.
Bottom of the hill, people are going to be going faster. So maybe you don't need to change the speed limit, right? The 85th percentile is still 43. So maybe you do. And if you look at the profile, still it looks like a majority, close to majority of the people are traveling 5 miles an hour or more over the speed limit.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a little bit more than 50% doing it right, but you still got a number of speeders there. And studies have shown that people pay more attention to the condition of the road and what they feel like the speed should be versus what the speed limit sign says. And we did a traffic count on Canal Boulevard before we dropped the speed there from 35 to 30. And there was no change in the average speed when we dropped it from 35 to 30. So it didn't change. It really didn't change people's behavior. Oh, so now we have 2 people in the waiting room. So I'm going to admit them. Again, sorry that you've been here for a while. I apologize for not letting you in earlier, Sarah. There was no change in the average speed when we dropped it from 35 to 30. So it didn't change. It really didn't change people's behavior. Oh, so now we have 2 people in the waiting room. So I'm going to admit them. Again, sorry that you've been here for a while. I apologize for not letting you in earlier, Sarah.
No worries.
No change.
Glad we could connect.
All right.
So now I'm getting a delayed response to my voice. So I hope that's not confused. You're not being bothered by that. So we're just going over speed information. So we just looked at 6,000 West, which if I ask you, Sarah, or
We just lost her again, Mayor.
that's okay, West Hilton, if I asked you on 6,000 West, that's the road north of Timpanogos Highway, that goes up to Beacon Hills.
Yeah.
It goes past the Longhorn Field.
Mm-hmm.
So which road do you think has more traffic, 6,000 West or Highland Boulevard? Highland Boulevard is the road that goes up to Draper. That's at the light where Smith's is. If you turn right and go up the hill.
I would guess 6,000 West.
You're guessing right. I would have guessed Highland Boulevard, but 6,000 West has about 10% more trips per day than Highland Boulevard does today. So the average trips, well, it's 7,500 on this counter here, Monday through Sunday average trips per day. On Highland Boulevard, let's look, what was Highland Boulevard? Highland Boulevard was 6,000. So 20% more on Highland Boulevard or on 6,000 West. Even though you've got, Draper, there's developed, Suncrest is up there. When the D.R. Horton project comes in, it'll probably change because they're going to put about 597 units at build out, and it'll be on about 180 acres. And you can see the speed, the average speed is 43 on Highland Boulevard. And if we go down to 6,000 West, the average speed is about 38.7. Speed limits are the same. What that tells you is people feel like that road Highland Boulevard can handle a higher speed limit. It is a wider road, much wider lanes. There is a slope on it, but you can see on the average speed, northbound and southbound, it's the same roughly.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter what direction you're going. They're still going this, here they're going 38 and there they're going 43. So it's about 5, people perceive it to be 5 miles an hour faster, and they, I'm sorry, I'm letting Sarah in. I'm moving my mouse between two screens. They feel like that road supports a faster speed limit, so they care more about how they feel than what the speed limit sign says, which is normal behavior. We're smarter than the people that set the speed limits. And on Highland Boulevard, that could be the case because it wasn't the traffic engineer that set the speed limit. It was city council back when I was on city council, because people were complaining, right? So there you go. So that is speed limits. Sarah and Wes, we bought, in the last 6 months, we bought these little radar speed detectors. They're a box about yay big, about that thick. So 5 inches by 4 inches, maybe 3.5 to 4 inches thick. You just put it on a pole or a street sign, and it checks traffic coming and going. And it can almost do 3 lanes. Like if you have a turn lane in the middle and 2 other lanes from the side of one road, it can do that. Very, very accurate. We get good data. We don't have tubes in the road which tell people you're measuring and sometimes changes behavior.
Mhm.
We've actually had people see the tubes and think, you know what, I'm unhappy with the speed limit here. I think people travel too fast. So I'm going to speed just to make sure that the city knows that there's a speeding problem here. We had somebody on camera admit that. I don't know if he realized he was on camera, but he did. He said, it can't be that low. I sped every time I was on that. You're one person. If you get 1,000 or 6,000 trips a day, it's hard to influence an average when you're just one person.
Yeah, that's an interesting approach.
But I like the unobtrusive nature of what we have now. And it's weather independent because we can't use the tubes in the snow because the plows will just rip them right up. So these are tools we can use year round. They install in about 5 minutes. The other ones take sometimes a half hour because you have to put the tubes out, you have to pound them in the road, you have to have somebody watching while you do that so you don't get run over. Very, very unsafe.
That's a great investment.
So I prevailed. I had to hammer on the council, but they relented. They were reluctant participants. So that's where that is. So I annually have, since I think I started this maybe when I was in city council, but let's see, which chart do I want to show here? I think it's this one. I look at our utility rates and tax rates and compare it with neighboring cities. And I do that not just to see where we're at. If we're really out of line, you don't want to copy your neighbor just because, but you also want to say, am I really out of line on where we're at? And I occasionally hear people complain about how high our fees are compared to other cities and how awful we are. So every year I take and I look at the utility rates. So sewer, storm sewer, garbage, other, for our neighboring cities: Alpine, American Fork, Cedar Hills, Eagle Mountain, Highland, Lehigh, Linden, PG, and Saratoga Springs. And I make certain assumptions. So I say, okay, for sewer, let's assume X number of gallons of charge per home. For storm sewer, I don't make any assumption there, but garbage, a can, a recycle can, and a regular can. And so I made notes here. So garbage, if I put my thing, one regular can, one recycle. For sewer, assume 9,000 gallons used. PI, assume 16,000 gallons used or 20,000 square feet. If you don't have meters, so you often set your rates based on the size of the lot. Culinary water, 12,000 gallons used. And so then I'm comparing apples to apples across cities. What the ones that are red, the numbers that are red are the lowest in their category. So Highland has the lowest culinary water rate by far of any city. And we just upped it $3 this year because we're going to have to drill another well because the aquifer is dropping on one of our wells below where it is. And it's going to cost about $1.7 million to drill the well.
Do we have a timing on that?
Probably 3 years. I'm guessing three or 4 years, maybe 2. We're still getting water
3
out of
years.
it.
How far is it dropping and how fast?
Good question. I don't know the answer. We're at about 580. We're planning on drilling 1,000-foot well. Where it's at right now, if we draw water from it, it comes out foamy because it's aerated because you've got water dropping. Because there's a long tube and it's dropping to, and we're getting air mixed in. So if we put that in our system, people would get concerned because they'd say our water's cloudy, but it's just air.
Right. Well, I would probably be concerned. I mean, people just aren't used to that.
Yeah,
right?
you're not. It's our water's really good. You know, we don't chlorinate our water. We're the largest city in Utah that does not chlorinate its water. We will have to change in a few years.
May I ask another question around that? Do we think that it's going to last for 3 years? Because we have one other well that's not in working order as well. Do we think it's going to last for 3 years, or do we?
We think it'll last for 3 or more. We just want to make sure we're ahead of it.
Okay.
We have 2 primary culinary wells. This is not one of them. It's our third. We had a scary situation earlier in the year when both of our primary wells were getting into failure mode. One was bad and we were planning to fix it, and then the other one started making noise, and we had somebody look at it and they said, yeah, it's going to fail within 6 weeks. And so we had to hurry up and order parts, and we did get both of them working, but there was a chance that they would have both failed, or one of them would have failed, and then we would have had to draw off this foamy one, the aerated water.
And how deep are those?
Those are over 500 feet as well. They're lower.
Are we going to need to go deeper on those as well? Because my understanding is that, right, the neighboring cities have gone deeper and will.
The one we need to go deeper on now is further up a hill, so it's at a higher altitude.
Which makes sense, yeah.
And you can't just drill deeper in the same well. You actually have to drill a whole new well. So it just doesn't work to try and drill an existing one deeper. But anyway, our culinary rates went up $3. So 17, so it's going to be about $20 a month. But even at that, it's still way lower than everybody else. Our PI is not the highest. Even if you include our other fees, which are in our case, we've got $18.50 for roads and $11.50 for public safety. Even when you include those, we're still below average. We're like 1.67% below the average of all those cities. So, okay, we're not the cheapest anymore, because before the road fee and the public safety fee, we were 1 or 2 in terms of lowest fees. But even then, you can see the average here on this chart with the blue chart, and the red dashed line is average. This is Highland. So our monthly bill is $142.04. Eagle Mountain's lower. Let's see, our bill's 139. The average is 142. Alpine's lower, Lehigh's lower, but AF is way higher. Cedar Hills is higher. PG is higher, and Saratoga Springs. This other chart here shows you the components of what. Here's our fees. So our other is pretty big compared to other people. Can you see that okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
And I do have a blog post with this data on it. If you want to go into more detail, just go to my blog. It's mankindperspectives.com with 2 N's and an S at the end. And I use Google spreadsheets a lot, and I just publish those in my blog posts. So I've got all kinds of data in my blog. If you want to learn stuff, it's a good source of information. So if we then go and say, okay, let's look at property tax and utility rates and combine them, how do we fare? This is the chart if you combine the property tax rate, the property tax and the utility rates. And I took an average home in Highland. I just randomly picked one a few years ago, and then I used the Utah County assessed value. It was about $694 last year, but I bet if they went to sell it, it would be $800,000 to $900,000. But it doesn't change. If property values go up, your tax rate goes down. But I just picked an average home for Highland. It's an R140 lot. It actually happenstance, it's somebody I know, but it's just because they had an average home. Nicer than my home. How's that? And Highland, you can see, is one of the lower property tax rates. And if you combine them, so here's property tax rates. We are not the lowest. Linden is, but we're $4 higher than Linden. We're always number 2. It makes me mad because Linden went to number 1 when Alpine raised their property tax last year. They did a property tax increase instead of a public safety fee. And I thought, okay, we'll be number 1. And then Linden somehow beat us. So can't win for losing. So we're always number 2. Avis, we try harder, right? So if you combine the utility and property tax, we're a little bit more below average than just the utility. So we don't fare too badly compared to our neighbors. And I just get really, I hate hearing how bad we are taxes when it's just not accurate. So I don't mean to whine at people. So don't think I'm whining. I just want you to be basing your whining on good information. So I have a couple other charts here that says, okay, if you combine them, which utility bill represents what percentage of the overall, you can kind of see that. The actuals, and then if you do it as 100%, our tax bill compared to utility as a percentage is the lowest of anybody. And that's just because our utility rates include public safety fee and road fee. There is a risk that the Supreme Court will decide next year, maybe the year after, that the transportation utility fees are illegal. And we would then need to drop that. So what I would recommend the council do next year is when they do the budget, they say, okay, let's pretend that the public safety, the transportation utility fee and the public safety fee go away because of this ruling that hasn't happened yet. Let's budget for it, and then let's have the truth in taxation hearing in August. The county will calculate what the property tax increase would be. And then we just say, okay, if the court rules that those fees are not legal, we will activate this property tax rate in August and eliminate the two fees. So the net effect on Highland as a whole is going to be zero, because you'll make the revenue from the property tax increase the same as what the revenue we're getting from the public safety fee and the transportation utility fee, road fee. But what'll happen is the costs will get allocated differently. Personally, I like the way the costs get allocated with the fee, because let's say you have a $4 million home, 2 adults. Why should you pay more than a $1 million home with 2 adults? You're both using the roads roughly equivalent. I don't think the size or value of your property matters. And if you have a heart attack, why should you pay 4 times the price for public safety than the $1 million home who also has a heart attack, right? So that's my personal view. There are other people that think, yeah, but it's a more fair way. It lines up more with based on a percentage of your income. But there are always corner cases, right? There are people that are retired that their income drops. They have a nice home, but it's bought and paid for. Anyway, I have my view. Other people have their view. But if we, in my view, if the city does that next year, then we're just prepared so that if a ruling comes against us, we can pull the trigger in August.
And we're not stuck if they do decide it's illegal.
And we're not asking for more money from Highland as a whole. We're just changing the allocation because the courts are requiring us to. Now, the legislature could act, but my understanding is the League of Towns and Cities would rather have the courts rule first, so they don't feel like they can act ahead of the League of Towns and Cities. And I've been an advocate with the League to let's get the legislature to act on this, because it doesn't make sense. It depends how the court rules. We don't know what the court's going to rule. So they could rule that a transportation utility fee, they could keep it to just the case in front of them, which is transportation utility fee, or they could say public safety fee are also illegal. Their cities charge all kinds of fees. There's counties charge a fee for a communication infrastructure, like for the towers that they have to put out. Other cities have public safety fees. They do, all kinds of weird fees that they apply to everybody. So we'll see what the court does. We could set it up. You can set it up if they just negate the transportation utility fee. We have that as the rate, and we keep the public safety fee in place. I don't know what the arguments are going to be and how they're going to land, but that's what I would do to be prepared, because we just don't know. So my recommendation to the council going forward is to do that. And we have 2 potential council members here. So there you go. I've told them, and I've told the current council, we've talked about it before. So, oh, and now Kurt's is waiting to get on. So let me invite Kurt into the room. Hang on a second. I'm admit. Okay, welcome, Kurt. Sorry if you were in the waiting room a long time. My bad. So that's just information that's there and available. Like I said, it's on a blog post. This information I'm going to show you is not on one yet. I will put it on a blog post. This is data from the Utah Taxpayers Association. So they compare the cost of government between cities, and they take the top 50 cities in Utah, okay, and they compare them. In this chart, I show Utah County in red. Highland is dark blue. So this is the chart by population. I was surprised that Salt Lake City is just 204,000. I would have thought they're bigger than that, but they're not. They're the biggest city in the town. Next is West Valley, then West Jordan, then Provo and Orem, and we're near the bottom. Okay, and the only other town in Utah County that made it is Santaquin, and they're 13,000. Alpine is about 10. Cedar Hills is about 10,000, so they didn't make the list. Then the Utah Taxpayers Association looked at how much money do these cities collect from taxes and fees from their residents. Salt Lake collects a lot of money. Lehigh collects a lot of money. We got 62 million. That's a lot of money. We get, we're here and we get 11 million. Okay. Now, then they said, let's look at the cities and look at their per capita income. Okay, so we turned out third. And I don't like to brag because wealth isn't the do all end all. I saw a study year and a half ago where it said that Highland had one of the highest, if not the highest, family size of any city in Utah. We were like 4.2 or 4.3, and I don't remember what the other cities were, but we were higher. So our per capita income should be a little bit lower compared to other cities, but Holiday and Cottonwood Heights are higher than us. But we're by far the highest of the cities that are tracked in the top 50 in Utah County. Now, I'm sure if you put Alpine in there, we might be fourth, right? Or Linden, or some of the smaller cities down south. But then they said, okay, top 50 cities by taxes and fees per capita. Okay, so we're 33rd. There's the median is the dashed line. So in Utah County, Provo is just barely lower than us. And Provo has lots of businesses and lots of other sources of income. Santaquin and Payson are lower than us. And then the last chart is they do taxes and fees per $1,000 of income. And now we're 44th. And nobody's lower than us in Utah County. That kind of lines up with where we are on my charts. I just do it by household instead of per capita. Maybe if I did it per capita, the numbers would be different. For me, the way I do things, it's easier just to track per household. But that's new information that just came out this week from the Utah Taxpayers Association. I took their data, put it in a spreadsheet so that I could work with it. But it does kind of verify, that we are we're below average in North Utah County. American Fork is like the top. They're third in that category. They're third in this category. Lehigh, and sometimes you think, well, let's look at Lehigh. We need to be more like Lehigh. They have more businesses, the offices, a lot more car dealerships and what have you. Guess what? On a per capita basis, we're a lot better than Lehigh. Look where we're at. They're 856. We're 578.
We don't want to be Lehigh.
We don't want to be Lehigh. We don't want to be Saratoga Springs or Orem. Provo, I guess we could be like, but I don't want the traffic that's associated with BYU. But we're doing okay, right? So the sky isn't falling. We can always be better. We can always be more efficient, but we do a good job. Staff, to their credit, does a really good job. I know I had a comment from someone earlier this week, and it was a friend. He said, I just heard that Nathan runs the city. Our city administrator runs the city. You don't, or the council doesn't. I said, well, actually, that's what we pay him to do. We pay our city administrator to run the city. We set policy, and our staff is really good. They do not try and force policy on us. They provide us information. If we ask their opinion, they'll share it with us. But my experience in 4 years as being there is staff does not lobby us to change policies. Occasionally, they do lobby us to say, hey, we've been looking through our city code and we're inconsistent. We should fix it. Here's how we recommend we should fix it. And the city code will never be fixed, right? Because it's always changing, and we're always finding out, oh, we changed this, but we forgot to change that, and this is now inconsistent. But the last 3 years, staff has gone through and really looked at different sections of code and said, how can we be more consistent? And then state law changes, and then we have to update our code, even if we didn't want to. Like this year, for accessory dwelling units, the state said you can no longer, for an internal ADU, which is typically a basement apartment, you cannot put additional requirements on that unit over and above what a house would normally need. So prior, the code said you had to have double drywall if you were going to have an accessory dwelling unit, like for your in-laws or your parents, or you were going to rent it, more if you're going to rent it. So you had to have a separate heating unit for it. Now you don't. In theory, it will make it easier. Not even in theory, it will in fact make it easier and cheaper to become legal. I would guess, and staff and I have looked at this and guessed, we think maybe 5% of the people that rent their basements have gone through the permit process. Maybe 5%. I don't think we'll get more ADUs because of this, which was the intent of the legislature, that we have a housing crisis, we need more ADUs. I think what this will do is we might get a few more ADUs, but you'll get more people doing it legally. And it's good for the city to know, because if there's a fire, it's good to know that, hey, there's an apartment in the basement that you need to check for people. It's not just one family, it's two, right? So there are legitimate reasons for the city to know that there's an accessory dwelling unit that has people in it, potentially. But the cost, it prohibited people from doing that. They didn't want to, because to put in a new heating system, if you don't have one, that's expensive, right? Especially if it's already drywalled to do double drywall, it's doable, but who wants to? It's just money. So it's easier just to rent it to a friend, right? Or whatever, without being permitted. But so our code will change, but I got the biggest kick out of that comment that the city manager is running, the city administrator is running the city. And I just said, yep, that's what we pay him to do. So it's, to me, it wasn't at all a pejorative. He was concerned that it would bother me. And I said, no, it doesn't. That's what we pay him to do. And but my opinion matters. If I go talk to them and say, hey, I'd really like to do this, it gets done. Okay. I don't want to abuse that, right? Because I'm one person, one opinion, and they try and follow processes and procedures as opposed to the squeaky wheel, right? We're just trying to fix the roads in the right sequence, for example, instead of the mayor saying, I really want this road fixed. Like, my road sucks, put it at the top of the list. Well, that would be wrong. My road does suck. It's getting fixed next year. I'm actually glad, because now you can't say it got fixed because I was in office. It was supposed to get fixed this year, but there's some sewer work that needs to get done. So it got pushed a year, which made me happy. Not my neighbors, but it made me happy because I couldn't be accused of that. So with that, I've kind of gone through all my prepared material. Is there anything that questions you have that I could answer? Could be about anything. Wes.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So I had trouble getting in right at the beginning of the meeting, so you may have already touched base on this, but I mainly was tuning in regarding Blue Bison. We're up here.
Oh, I have not touched that. Perfect.
Okay. Yep.
So Blue Bison. So here's the story there. Glad you brought it up. I said I would talk about it. I just have no materials for it.
Thank you.
Okay, so Blue Bison owns 109 acres on the northeast side of Highland, just above Angel's Gate, and then a little bit to the north and then the east. They also bought land in Alpine to the east of that. And their thought was, we buy the land, we can actually force a connection and then be able to build more than 50 single family homes on that. Because with a single connection, they can only do 50 and potentially 100 multifamily units. Now, the mayor and the city manager both told me they thought that could happen, that was a permitted use, but they have not. Their city manager told me he would email me what the answer was, and he didn't. So to me, that says maybe the council is not all on board and they don't want to commit to something to somebody that's not in their city. Because it doesn't matter what I think, right? To them, I'm not a Draper resident. So
and them, you mean Alpine?
No, I mean Draper.
Oh, okay, Draper. Okay.
Draper, sorry. Because I talked to the Draper city manager and he told me that, so the land is in Draper. Now, I met with the mayor of Draper, the city manager of Draper, and the money behind Blue Bison. Name of the person is Jason Kilgore. The same Jason Kilgore that's the Kilgore gravel pit at the mouth of the canyon. And he's got a couple other gravel pits in Utah, and he just bought one in Oregon. So he talked to me and said, look, it's going to cost me, they met with me, they said, look, it's going to cost me $7 million to put a road out to Highland Boulevard. Okay. He said, if I could connect to Angel's Gate, would you consider it? And how many units would you allow? And I told him, well, in order to connect one, you have to annex into Highland. Because what's the point? And then I talked to our fire chief, and he said, the max I would allow there is 30. And then in talking with council members, I think maybe 20 was what they would allow. And then for the owner, it's just math. So I had a conversation with the owner last week with Jason. And I said, this is what I think, 20, maybe 30. And here's the other costs that we would require you to bear. Here's what you'd have to do. You'd have to build a 400,000 gallon culinary water tank. Our pressurized irrigation pond could work for you. You'd have to build a pump station to put pressure in the system to get it to you, but we don't need more space. We do need a second source for water to fill it. And depending on how many homes you build, we may have to upgrade a sewer line. And we for sure will have to upgrade a lift station because all the sewage in Beacon Hills goes down to a lift station that at the bottom of the hill, like west of 6,000 west at Timpanogos. And we have to pump it up to Timpanogos Highway to the main sewer line that's in that. So we have a lift station there and it's at capacity and it's at capacity with future growth. So whatever they put in, we'd have to upgrade that. And I did some really rough conservative calculations. We kind of roughed it out with our engineering staff. And I said, about $2 million is what that could cost you in total. These are just rough figures. He said, look, that's just, I need way more. He told me at one point in time, he needed 70 units to make it pencil for him. So where we're at with them now, he's declined that option. And he's gonna, they have a lawsuit with Alpine to get a second road. So he wants to see how that pans out because that would let him have higher density. I'm not sure how much higher because I think that's a Draper City Council decision. I don't know which way they'd land. It could be more, it could be hundreds. I just don't know. So the advantage of that land coming into Highland is we could control what the density is. And if we put, let's say you put 20 homes there, an average home generates 10 trips a day. That would put 200 cars, 200 trips on Angels Gate and Lighthouse. A residential road is designed to go up to maybe 1,500 trips a day. I don't know how many trips a day are currently on there. I would guess it's in the neighborhood of 600 to 700 up at Angels Gate, maybe. So 200 trips a day isn't that much. I mean, it is more, clearly. I don't think it's that much more, that's my opinion. And I know people get agitated all the time, anytime development happens. We're going to kill kids. We're going to cause death and destruction because we put in a road. You know, there was a lot of pushback for a lot of years to get that connector between Alpine Highway and North County Boulevard. And it's made a lot of difference. And we're getting about 5,800 trips a day on that. And when I think about that, I think, okay, every person that's doing that is driving that road because it saves them time. So they're traveling less, they're putting less miles on their car, less pollution in the air. It's saving them time. It's saving wear and tear on their car. I think it's great. That road can handle probably 10,000 trips a day. So it's nowhere near capacity. I just know at the current, at 6,000 trips a day, we're not even close to capacity on that road. Now, speeding is another thing. People, I think the speed limit might be too low on that road. It's set at 30. I think the 85th percentile there is 46, 47, something like that, 48. The average speed is in the 40s or high 30s. So it should probably go up to at least 35. But that's a decision that'll happen later. It'll stay where it is for now, for a while. But anyway, people get nervous when there's change, right? It's always going to be really bad. And I think it's our job as elected officials to say, okay, wait a minute, let's find out what the real story is. And if you're going to lead, you don't just follow people's concerns. You research them and find out if they're legitimate. You don't just reflect and amplify their concerns. You research, and if it's not a problem, you tell them. That's leadership, right? You walk them through. You say, here's all the issues, all the factors. Another thing Jason Kilgore could do with the property, he could sit on it until it becomes economically feasible for him to build 2 roads out to Highland Boulevard, and then he could have a lot more density. So you're just kind of playing a risk game. I suspect what he'll do is he'll wait. If he loses the Alpine suit, he'll go back to Draper and say, okay, what do I need to do to build here? Because Draper told me that they hadn't yet told him the things that we told them, that you would need a lift station, that you would need a culinary water tank, that you'd need a PI pond. So he will learn more about costs, and he may come back to us and say, well, I said no, but now I changed my mind. I think that's a possibility, but for now it's off the table. It may come back in 9 months-ish, I would think. And then then it's another decision point. Okay, what do we want? What risk do we want to mitigate this risk of it becoming really bad by bringing it into Highland? And then maybe if you bring it into Highland at a specific density, then you could work with Alpine to create another connection so that you had more than just one outlet, and then that would spread the traffic out a little bit. But if it was only 20, I really don't mean to belittle anybody's fears, but I don't see 20 homes as being significant. Now, I have to qualify that. I do not know how many trips a day are happening there. I've scheduled that. I've asked them to put it on the schedule for my little boxes to go out and check that. But I don't know at the moment. So I should say I'm ignorant. I don't know. I will tell you my opinion once I know more information. That's what I should say.
I'm a little ignorant too. That's why I wanted to attend this meeting. So some of my concerns are based on just kind of hearsay and what I've heard, and I don't know if they're true or not, but what I thought I heard was that he wanted to stuff a bunch of really high density stuff up there that would then come through our neighborhood.
He can't. Yeah, he can't do that unless we let him. And I don't. Our council, like I said, I think 20, maybe 25. I don't know what the threshold is. I can't speak for them. I know my just current feeling is it gets uncomfortable as you approach 30.
That's reasonable. Right?
It's more comfortable now, but that would be our call, because unless it annexes into Highland, we wouldn't allow that connection. And when they first bought it about 5 years ago, Blue Bison was pressuring all the members of council, and I was on the council at the time.
Yeah.
And my comment, I did not meet with Mr. Satterley, but my comment to him was, it'll be 80 degrees on Christmas before you get a road through Highland, or you can share in our infrastructure. Because at the time they were looking at 200-300 multifamily units. And I'm not sure they could even build that, because the Rocky Mountain Power or is it Dominion? No, Dominion has easements for some gas lines, and you can't build on those.
So that's kind of, those numbers are kind of old news. It's
Yeah, so
not
those
really
are,
in the realm of possibility at this point.
at this point, the only thing I know sort of for sure is that Draper will allow them, with one road, Draper will allow them to build 30 homes, single-family homes. If they sprinkle them, I mean, put sprinklers in, they'll allow them to go up to 50. I believe, and I've heard conflicting stories, that they would also let them do 100 multifamily units. I did get a good explanation from our fire chief about sprinkling, the requirement to sprinkle on wildland urban interfaces. And it's not to protect the home. It's to protect the wildland from a home fire.
Oh.
Because if your home burns and that wildland catches fire, you know that's a problem, right?
Right.
So it's more, and it's more to protect the wildland from catching fire than it is the home from being impacted by a wildland fire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Could I just ask one last clarifying question?
As many as you want.
Thank you. So that was very informative. So just to clarify, the only way that any homes or dwellings above Beacon Hill right now would come through our Highland neighborhoods would be if the city council blessed it, if they voted for it.
Well, yes, and actually there is some code that we have that says you can't connect a road into Highland unless our residents get some benefit out of it. Mm-hmm. So that would mean the only way they could connect is for them to annex into Highland. And so if they were to do that, then our city council would have total control over how many units they can put in there, because when you do an annexation, that's a legislative process and you can put whatever constraints you want on it. So you can put deed restrictions and say this can never be more than 20 units, for example, ever. Now, I can't, future council might be able to overturn that, but that would be a heavy lift because there's no incentive to overturn it. There are some people that think, you could make good money on 20 units, given what people are paying for that kind of property in today's market. So that you're getting $1.5 million, $2 million just for the land.
Yeah. Right? But Jason Kilgore feels otherwise, or is he just trying to maximize?
He just doesn't. He just said, I just can't make money.
Yeah.
And it's his property, right? I can't. He does the math. It's his call.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Very nice person, by the way. I've talked with Jason Satterley on the phone, and he's gone to threats of lawsuits, and I'm going to make you, and I'm going to punish you. That's his style. Jason is just more matter of fact. Okay, let's just talk. What are the options?
Oh, okay. So that's confusing. There's two Jasons then.
Well, there's Jacob. It's Jacob Satterley.
Oh, Jacob. Okay.
Who's the?
So who are those two guys? Jason Kilgore and Jacob.
Jason Kilgore is the money behind Blue Bison, so he's the investor.
Okay.
Jacob is the person that was talking to Draper. He's the one that arranged the deal. He sold Jason on investing in Blue Bison.
Okay.
So and Jason feels like I got snookered. It was a bad investment. Now I'm just trying to get my money out. Which
right.
A normal person would do that, right? Like, okay, yeah. How do I made a mistake. How do I get out of this with the least possible damage?
Yeah.
And so I can't fault him for the approach he's taken, but he has been, in my conversations with the conversations I've had with him, I felt he's been straightforward and open and candid. So there's no reason to have a bad relationship with him.
Jacob Satterley's a little different animal. Yeah.
Well, he's like a salesman. He's a salesman. I'm still, and the Draper City Council is the same way. He bought something before it was entitled the way he needed it to be to make money.
Right.
He bought it and said, I can magic it somehow. Well, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I can't fault Draper for taking his money because they've told him, this is what it's entitled for. If you want something different, you'll have to get it through. But right now, this is what it's entitled for. We don't think you should buy it, but we'll take your money.
Yeah.
Right?
So, could you give me a couple sentences background on that? It was open land for Draper, and then they said, we'll sell you this chunk.
Draper bought that whole hillside.
Uh-huh.
And they spent, I think, $5-ish million. So you got to give me like 30% leeway on that.
Yeah.
So it's not, and they made the expectation they set with their residents is this is going to be a conservation easement. So we're going to use it for trails and what have you. In their mind, they also set up some rules for development around it. So you had homes development at Suncrest, and then below that, on our side of the hill, there's some developments there. The people that developed that, I don't remember the name of the developer. He went bankrupt.
Oh. Wow.
And he put in some sewer and water lines down Highland Boulevard. And we actually put an impact fee on the property that would use that line that they put in. So this was back early 2000s, I think. When they went bankrupt, for some reason, our council removed the impact fee. But they had gone bankrupt, so nobody was asking for the money. Then somebody bought the development out of bankruptcy, bought the debt out of bankruptcy, okay? And then we got a letter from them one day saying, you owe us $1 million. Because, we hadn't paid and there was interest and what have you. And then we went looking back in history, and sure enough, there was this agreement that we had done, and we benefited from this infrastructure, and we were going to take and pay for part of it. But we ended up settling for, I think, $400,000. But that was unbudgeted. Nobody, the people that were involved in that were long gone. Somebody knew about it, bought the debt, and they made a lot of money because I think they spent, I'm speaking, this might be fourth party, but I believe they spent like $20,000 for the debt.
Wow.
So they got a good return on their investment.
Yeah.
It was just something that we lost track of. And so, shame on us. We had some staff turnover. And
that deal was with the developer of Suncrest or with the property for Blue Bison?
There's not Blue Bison, but there were some associated with that whole development. I think they had planned to potentially have the land where the Blue Bison bought be developed over time. When Blue Bison paid what they paid, they essentially, what I heard was, the money they gave Draper paid for all the land, the whole hill that they bought.
Wow.
So why would you as an entity turn that down?
Yeah.
But the cost to build the road from where their property is out to Highland Boulevard, it's not simple terrain.
Yeah.
Complicated. They do have the right to develop a road on that property.
But not into Beacon Hill, but
not into Highland,
yeah.
but they're litigating with Alpine to get it there. Now, Alpine thinks they have a good case, but you never know when things go to court.
Yeah.
So they went to before you go to court, you have to go through an appeal process. So like Highland, we have an appeal authority. It's a city attorney from up north who, when somebody disagrees with a council decision, they can appeal it. We bring him in, have him review the case, review it against law, and then he can deny their appeal or overturn it. Well, in Alpine's case, their appeal authority said, "No, you're good," and now they're taking it to court, to district court.
Yeah. Okay.
And if they lose, if Alpine loses, they could take it to an appeals court beyond that.
Okay.
Or if Blue Bison loses, they could do the same. So I don't know how far up the chain they'll try and push it, but
Yeah.
they've
So
lost one appeal.
Oh, do they? Okay.
So
Yeah.
Kilgore lost the initial appeal authority, or Blue Bison lost the initial.
Yeah.
So who knows?
So just to review, if they won that case with Alpine, or if they decided to build through Draper, they could put maybe 50 homes up there.
They could put, if they do one road to Highland Boulevard, Draper will allow them to build 50 single family units that are sprinkled.
Okay. And if they win the case against Alpine, do you know?
Then
what
they
can
may
build
be
up
able to do more.
there?
I
Okay.
don't know how much more.
And then Highland is only if you cut a deal with them.
Right, but Highland wouldn't cut a deal with them if it was. Well, they
20
would.
to 30 homes max,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it could even be less than that, but.
Yeah.
And I'm giving you my sense of the council, which can always change.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I just don't see our council approving it. If it had a really detrimental effect on our neighborhoods, we would never, it just wouldn't happen. So I don't know what the detrimental effect is. We have looked at what the impact is in terms of, are we going to be able to serve it? And if Kilgore does what we asked them to do, they could serve it without negatively impacting our residents. And in fact, having a second source for water up there would benefit the overall system. But that's only on the table if Blue Bison is interested, and they've tabled that for now.
Yeah.
But for now, the only news is there's no news. And here's what, they're waiting for the court decision, which could happen this fall. And then whatever happens with that, then they'll move forward. And all I know is, you have good relationships with your neighboring cities, but when you try and tell a neighboring city what they should do, it's kind of like dads telling their teenage boys, don't do this. The response is not affirmative, not positive, right?
Right.
You're not my boss type of thing.
Yeah, you're not the boss of me.
Yes, my children said that.
Yeah. I thank you. That was all really informative. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And we just had this election, I guess, and we have some candidates here. I guess
Yes.
the one last follow-up question I would, and I'm not sure if this is appropriate to ask you as an elected official, but I found it difficult to kind of get what I felt was the real position and attention of each candidate, because I didn't want to go and interview each one personally, or, I kind of just relied on a little bit of hearsay, which is not the right way to do it. But do you have any suggestions? I mean, on a national scale, you can go to like League of Women Voters or GOP Guide or things like that. For these local elections, unless you're really tied in, the people and the issues, any suggestions for the standard citizen on how to make a decision that comports with their,
Yes. So I actually wrote on my blog, how do you select a candidate for local elections? So I went through some criteria. It's actually, I got a lot of positive feedback on that. So
mankindperspectives.com, is that what you said?
yeah, Mankind Perspectives, that with two N's and an S. The other thing I would do in this case is I would do you ever watch 2 Minute Tuesdays?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
the guy that does those, and the last one is really, really good. It's one of his best ones. If you haven't watched
I love it. Yeah.
He interviewed each candidate for 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
He called it Grilling the Candidates.
Yeah.
I watched those, and those are pretty good. So if you haven't watched them for the remaining candidates, that's a good use of an hour to listen to those.
Okay.
Because
I am happy to talk to you by the phone or have a visit.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
And I think most candidates.
It's important. And I've had a lot of phone calls and a lot of people reaching out to me just recently. And so I would invite you, and I can give you my number now, but certainly, and if you have neighbors and friends, we can do it all at the same time, kind of a little cottage meeting. So,
yeah. And is there, we've had this election, now there's another runoff in November?
Well, so right? We're down to 4 candidates. So it's Colby, Sarah, Jerry Abbott, and Scott Smith.
For one spot?
For 2 spots.
Okay.
So there are 2 spots open, and there are 4 candidates. You have a primary if you have more than 2 candidates per opening.
Okay.
Which is why you didn't see the mayor's race on the primary, because there's only 1 candidate for mayor. So I should know, but I don't even know if his name will be on the ballot. If he's there, it might just be by acclamation. Like Cedar Hills one year, they had the same number of candidates as they had opening. So they had no election cost.
Yeah.
By acclamation.
So you're bowing out, you're retiring.
I am letting someone else have a really good experience. I love being mayor. I still love it. And I'm leaving with mixed emotions. So I'm not leaving because it's a horrible thing, or I don't think it's I'm just leaving because it's my time to not be mayor.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily happy about it, but that's another thing. But it's a really growing experience. It's good. So something that people do is that, like Sarah mentioned, they'll hold cottage meetings. And what you could do, if you wanted to be really clever and innovative, you could have a cottage meeting. Say, I'm going to hold at my house, invite my neighbors for an hour and a half. We're going to have a cottage meeting. And instead of inviting all the candidates there, you say, okay, we're going to have Scott Smith be with us from 7 to 7:20 and Colby from 7:20 to 7:40. So every candidate gets 20 minutes of time with a smaller group, and you can do your own grill the candidate, right? You can, and I've been to the events like that, and I get a lot out of them when it's done that way, because you can focus on what the candidate is. And one of the reasons you have a hard time sometimes getting information from people who are running for office is they're not in the seat yet. And I'll tell you, it's a learning curve, right? You come and all of a sudden you're supposed to be the expert on everything and you know nothing, right? You're supposed to know about sewer and water and roads. So a lot of candidates, they're getting up to speed on what does it take to even take care of roads, and then what in Highland are the issues with our roads. So sometimes it's, when you're looking at candidates, you're really, and this is a judgment, right? Who do you think can learn and their thought processes you're comfortable with? Because you can't know every issue. So one of the things that I think is less helpful for candidates is if you're like a single issue candidate, you're running to solve a particular problem. Well, what happens when the $400,000 bill, or you get a letter asking for $1 million that you had no idea was coming, or somebody wants to develop this property that you thought would never get developed ever, like Blue Bison, for example. It's not our problem, it's Draper's problem, but we could have similar problems. Or what happens when you have a boundary dispute, like with D.R. Horton and them wanting to be in Lehigh, right? The property over by Micron. How are you going to handle that type of situation? What are they going to do when they get something they haven't thought of before?
Yeah.
Those, you should ask questions that would kind of, how do you deal with problems, right? What's your process for dealing with an issue? How do you, one question that I've asked candidates before, one-on-one, not in a public situation, is, okay, tell me a time when doing the right thing caused you personal pain, when something that the right thing to do would affect you negatively. How did you handle that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think most of us have, if we think hard enough, we've been in that boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or tell me about a situation when you had to, when you did something stupid. How did you fix it? And we've all done something stupid, right?
Yeah.
How do you remedy that? Because I guarantee you, whoever you elect is going to say something they wish they didn't say, or they're going to do a vote. There are a couple of votes I would do differently now, knowing what I know. Not that many. And that's kind of the good thing about the council, because you have 5 people and they all have different perspectives, and it's really good to hear them. And when I was in the council, I felt naked if I had an opinion and somebody didn't disagree with me. I got nervous. Are we doing the right thing? Because for me, opposition makes me think harder and research, and I might change my mind, or I might just say, you know what, my original decision was right. Or maybe somebody comes up with an alternative that's better than anything that was on the table before. That often happens. I had an idea I thought was the best in the world, and somebody else had a better idea, or somehow a better idea evolved out of something.
Yeah.
So I like different perspectives, but you've got 5. So usually the council usually ends up making good decisions. Now, are they the best decisions? Not always, but they're usually not bad. Occasionally, there's just something boneheaded happens, and that just is just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so in
Well,
West,
thanks for that.
we could even do a big Zoom meeting. I'm a good Zoomer.
Well, Sarah, if you want to give me your number, that'd be great.
Yeah, 801-520 0728.
Thank you for that. Hey, Colby, are you okay with giving out your number as well? Or
Absolutely. You probably have it because we're neighbors, but I'm 801-319-8019.
801-319?
Yep. 8019, 8019.
Okay, great. Thanks, you two. I appreciate that. Look
Thanks
forward
for being on here, man. That means a lot.
If you go to the city's elections page, you go to the city site, you look up, you go departments, clerk, and then under clerk, there's elections. And there'll be candidate bios for every candidate. And on that is their email and their phone numbers for all the candidates, I believe.
Oh, super. Okay, great.
There is.
When there'll be a brief bio. That one might not be the best, because usually that's the first thing you have to do is write a bio, and you do your best, but you might want to do it again a month later. Like, oh, I've talked to a bunch of people. I've thought about things, and so I would talk to them, get current information.
Yeah.
Maybe look at their websites. If you haven't looked at Grilling the Candidates, those are really good. And
I've seen a few. I haven't seen them all. Yeah.
So, but he doesn't do gotcha, right? He tries to, because I think if he wanted to, he could do like a best of and make people look really not as good. But
Right.
he just tries to be honest and do best foot forward.
He did a great job. He's kind of asked everybody the same questions and just
Yep.
let you roll with
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
it was good.
Yeah.
But I did notice that he didn't touch up my hair or makeup or anything. Just saying.
Mine either, Sarah. I don't know.
Right. Well, hey, you two, thanks for your willingness to run and serve, and Mayor, really grateful for all the time and effort you've put in while in office. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
So do you live up on Angels Gate then?
So I'm on Wildflower.
Okay.
So
That's one of the cul-de-sacs on that go east off of Lighthouse.
So Lighthouse connects to Wildflower across.
Okay.
I forget the one with the culvert underneath.
Yes. Yes. So you go down a dip and you're on the other side.
Yeah. So that's the only connection between Lighthouse and Wildflower, except down at the bottom.
Okay.
By the park. So yeah, I'm worried about the road coming in at the park up top. Actually, I guess probably most of the traffic would go down Lighthouse.
It would.
It would only occasionally come down Wildflower, but yeah, I mean, my two main concerns about that are just speed, because it's a, downhill, you're always going to gain speed. And then the idea of having housing that's not consistent with the neighborhood and rental housing where, people.
If they go to multifamily
units,
that's an issue.
Yeah.
But the last thing when I spoke with Jason, my sense was that he was looking at taking the 50 single family home route
from Draper.
Sure.
We'd have homes behind us, but they wouldn't be coming through the neighborhood. They go out through Alpine.
They'd go out for sure through Highland Boulevard, because he at least needs to do that. Even if he gets a connection through Alpine, unless Alpine wanted to annex him in, and then they would put similar restrictions to us on it.
Yeah. So they're kind of shopping for the best deal they can get, essentially.
Yes. So
through the courts or through the council.
They're shopping. He's trying to get out of, do the best he can with. I'm
can't blame him for that. It's the Jacob guy that I've got a little feedback on. So.
Yeah, and he just oversold, and I'm being generous, right? Being generous. He had a vision, and in his mind, it was done, even though it wasn't. But he sold the vision, not the reality.
Yeah. Well, my understanding is that that's not terribly unusual for developers to basically take a gamble on a lot, but to understand they're gambling, to kind of hope that they can get the city to change their mind on something. What I've seen in Highland is a developer takes out a contract with the landowner for 6 months and he pays $10,000, and that preserves the right to buy that property at X price. And then he'll work to get it entitled. I think.
And then if it doesn't, they're out $10,000, right? So they put red, but it's not like they're out millions.
And that's not what Jacob did.
No.
He just bought the whole thing, and then
he bought it from the city, paid cash, using somebody else's money, right? Other people's money.
Okay.
Told on how great an investment this was.
This is all becoming clearer now. Thank you.
So think of a young, ambitious guy that is in over his head.
Sure.
And then trying everything to not drown. And you just keep digging a hole. Sometimes you just keep digging when you should stop digging.
Yeah.
They've done that.
Right. Right. All right. Well, that was very informative. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So anything else from anybody? congratulations again to Sarah and Colby.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you. And thanks for your time.
You are very welcome. And this will be, I streamed this on YouTube Live, so if you want to ever go back and watch it, it's on my channel, and it's Mayor Man. It's in my, the link for it's on my Facebook invite and in the email that I send out. And Wes, if you want to be on my email list, just drop me an email. And when I do things like this, or I put a post out there, I share it with the email list.
I will. What's your email address?
mayor@highlandcity.org.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, those 2-minute Tuesdays are fantastic. If I don't want to go spend a couple hours at a meeting.
No, this last one, you got to watch it. And I say that because my wife decorated the council room for a baby celebration that they had during the day. It was a fling event.
Yeah.
And our finance director saw her decorating. He said, "You're leaving that for a council meeting, right?" And then I said, "Oh yeah, great idea." So it's all decorated. And the theme was "Baby, You're a Star." And so there were stars and big moons. It was just, and there were lights. And
you guys stuck with the theme too, didn't you? So
and we stuck with the theme. And I gave council members stars when they made a motion. I said, "Oh, you just got a star." And so when the council members came in, there was music playing, and so he captured them going through this tassel thing. And then my wife and I, before the meeting, were fooling around on a chair and dancing, and I was kind of dancing around the room, and he captured all that. So the little, how he does those funny things at the end. I embarrassed myself at the end. So
you got to watch the very end, don't you?
You gotta watch the whole thing. Okay.
you got to watch the whole thing.
He's very clever. Yeah, well, if you're not running for a re-election, you can take all kinds of liberties, right?
Yes, so I've kind of let my hair down.
Good.
Hey, Mayor, real quick, do you know who's got Alpine Joint Ventures?
I do not.
They've got an awful lot up there too. I'm wondering.
They've got a lot of land there, and that land is, I don't believe it's in our annexation plan.
Okay.
So, but it could be. But see, that land, if that 109 acres for a blue bison became really, really valuable, and he felt like he wanted more density, he could negotiate with Alpine Ventures to put a road through their property.
Oh yeah.
It would be expensive, but
And
so
very
that's how he could
unpopular, but
it's in the county,
yeah.
right? And it's private property, and he could.
No, absolutely.
They could buy that. I have not heard from Alpine Ventures. There is, to the south of that and a little bit to east, is another few parcels that are now owned by a couple people, and that will be developed.
Okay.
That's just above like Grenoble. In fact, we approved a couple developments there, but there are more homes that will be coming in there.
All righty. Thank you, sir.
You are welcome.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sarah.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.